For the 4.5 billion years our planet has existed, we humans have only been around for between 2 to 300,000 of them. But in that time, we've left our mark all over the world, often in the most perplexing and mysterious of ways. From inexplicable architecture to unfathomable attire, you'd better grab your fedora and whip, because we're gonna dig up some of the most confusing archaeological finds that shouldn't exist. Walking with dinosaurs. A few things are certain. The world is round, I make amazing fact-based videos, and the dinosaurs went extinct 65 million years ago. Or did they? This ancient mosaic in the Italian city of Palestrina implies otherwise. It's considered the most comprehensive example of Nilotic landscape ever, an art form depicting the River Nile from a non-Egyptian perspective. But that's not why I'm showing it to you. Can you see anything out of place? No? Well, how about this little guy right here? Whoa. Looks kinda like a dinosaur, doesn't it? Could this be evidence that the terrible lizards roamed Egypt as little as 2,000 years ago? Well, according to some people, it is. Some religious fundamentalists say the mosaic proves that Earth is much younger than commonly believed. But take another look. Is that definitely a dinosaur, or maybe an otter? Most scholars agree this is the more likely explanation. The section of the mosaic the creature is depicted on represents Nubia, an area known for its large species of otter. And considering there's practically no other evidence to suggest dinos ever walked amongst men, I'm inclined to agree. That being said, compared to the humans, that would have to be one ginormous otter. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Zardra. Deep in the desert of Algeria rests a vast sea of dunes. Floating in the midst of them, the ruins of a fortified village called Zardra. The supremely odd structure remains a complete mystery to archaeologists. It just doesn't make sense. Why would it be built here in the middle of nowhere? When was it built? How were its inhabitants connected to civilization? All questions that nobody has any solid answers to. We do know the structure was built with defense in mind, made clear by its huge 26-foot inner walls and 6.6-foot outer walls. What the inhabitants needed to protect themselves from, though, isn't so clear. A single lone Jewish symbol resides on one wall, leading some to say Algerian Jews may have lived there once, potentially to escape prejudice or just live in secluded study. But we can't be sure. And this air of mystery is exacerbated by several strange legends that surround the fort. One tells of a group of Americans who traveled there with the help of some guides back in the 1980s. When they arrived, they asked the guides to leave them alone for a week. Nobody knows what they were looking for or what they found inside, but apparently when the guides returned, the Americans were nowhere to be found. Creepy. Zardra does kind of give you the weird horror movie vibes, doesn't it? It definitely freaks me out. All that seclusion? Ugh. Would you visit? Let me know down in the comments. The Da Vinci Globe. The world wasn't widely accepted as round until about the 15th century. Since then, millions of globes have been created to illustrate the fact. But what was the very first? Well, author and historian Stéphane Massin says an ostrich laid it back in 1502. Hold up, what? Found at a London map fair in 2012, this extraordinary globe at first seems like some kind of impossible biological enigma. But it's actually made from the conjoined lower halves of two ostrich eggs. So I'm afraid it didn't pop out pre-painted. Humans have used ostrich eggs for decorative purposes for millennia, and they were very expensive items at the time, so the globe would have been a coveted possession. In fact, experts agree the unique and highly detailed map is probably the oldest globe depicting the New World, that's the Americas, we've ever discovered. Massin, who now owns the ostrich globe, goes a step further. He says it was made by the famous Renaissance artist and inventor, Leonardo da Vinci himself. If so, it would be one of the most significant finds of the 21st century. Indeed, there are clues it was crafted by the Big Da Vinci. It's believed to have originated in Florence, where he spent much of his life, and the engraving style is also characteristic of Da Vinci's. What's more, Da Vinci actually implied that he'd created a globe in some of his writings. Game, set, match, right? Well, some cartographers point out that the engravings present on the globe are beyond Da Vinci's skill, and that there isn't enough mention of the New World in his writings to suggest he'd bother making a whole globe to represent it. Either way, it's still a remarkable find, even if its origins remain a bit of an enigma. My channel is far less enigmatic. I'm always uploading entertaining fact videos like this one, so why not head down and hit the like and subscribe buttons? That way you'll never miss one again. Done? Okay, moving on. The Skull of Doom. Are you an Indiana Jones fan? Well, I've got good news for you. I'm just like him. Only instead of old tombs, I plunder the internet for lost treasures, like crystal skulls. That's right, they're very real. The most famous is the Mitchell Hedges skull. It was allegedly discovered by Anna Mitchell Hedges, adopted daughter of daring explorer Frederick Mitchell Hedges, in the ancient Mayan city of Lubantun in the 1920s. Exquisitely carved from 11 pounds of clear quartz, the artifact implies that ancient Mayans had access to far more advanced stone-cutting skills than was previously thought. What's more, the skull is said to possess a number of magical properties. According to Mitchell Hedges, it can cure cancer, bring on intense visions, and even unalive people. Because of this, it's earned the spooky nickname, the Skull of Doom. How did it end up in an ancient Mayan ruin then? Well, some people believe the Mayans were far more advanced than we realized, or even that the skull proves they could use ancient magic, long lost to the ages. While that's a fun idea, the claims that the skull has strange powers are largely unsubstantiated. In fact, we're not even sure it was found in Lubantun. There was an expedition there in the 1920s, but nobody else that went on it recalled seeing the skull. And for good reason. It turns out Frederick Mitchell Hedges actually purchased it at an auction in 1943 for $18,000 in today's money. Damn! So Anna and Frederick had lied about it being an ancient Mayan artifact, bringing into question all of their other fantastical claims. Indeed, an examination of the skull in 2008 revealed it was carved using diamond tools unavailable to artisans in the pre-Columbian era. Rather than suggesting the Mayans had some secret knowledge, this is more likely to mean it was just created far later, probably around the 1930s. No ancient magic here then, but I gotta say, it'd make a great paperweight. The Crying Mummy. In 2021, archaeologists from the National University of San Marcos were exploring an underground Peruvian tomb when they made a spine-chilling discovery. A deeply unsettling mummy bound in the fetal position with its hands covering its face, as if the person had been terrified. The image sent the internet into a frenzy. I mean, what the heck could possibly have happened to the poor person? Despite how creepy it seems though, there's a reasonable explanation. The person lived somewhere between 800 to 1200 years ago, predating the Inca Empire that ruled large portions of South America prior to European colonization. That implies the odd arrangement of the mummy is an outcome of a belief in reincarnation. See, in pre-Incan Peruvian culture, burying someone in the fetal position prepared them for birth in the next life, as it was believed to make rebirth easier. The person was covered in cloth and bound with rope as a way to prevent decay. And the incredible condition of the mummy means it clearly worked. So it's not really as unusual as it first seems. Far from creepy, the mummy's positioning is likely the result of a loving community taking care of its past. More wholesome than you thought, right? Visiting Vikings. Italian explorer Christopher Columbus is widely credited as the first European to have made contact with the Americas back in 1492. Scandinavian Vikings actually visited the western continent centuries before, but they never went any further than Newfoundland. Or at least that's what we thought. let me introduce you to the main penny. This unremarkable looking coin was uncovered during an archaeological dig at Goddard Point, Maine by amateur archaeologist Dr. Guy Melgren in 1957. Only it was soon clear it was anything but unremarkable. The penny dates back to the 11th century and bears the crowned figure of King Olaf III of Norway. That makes it a Viking coin. But wait, there'd only ever been evidence that the Vikings landed in Newfoundland, some 400 miles from Maine. So how the heck could the coin have gotten there? Well, if the Vikings actually explored more of the New World than we thought, it'd change our whole idea of history as we know it. However, it's not that simple. Boring skeptics think it was brought to Maine by later European settlers and not the Vikings themselves. And as much as I don't want to believe that, in the absence of any other Viking artifacts in the area, it's probably true. That being said, we just don't know for sure. The coin is a mystery. One thing is for sure though, it's a real illustration of how complex the history of North America really is. Haunting helmets. Helmets have been worn by humans since around 2500 BC. I mean, they're pretty useful, right? But while most helmets are worn as a form of defense, some are more perplexing. Like this absolutely crazy Japanese headpiece once worn by a 16th century samurai. Just looking at it, you'd be forgiven for thinking it's a joke. However, there's method to the madness. The octopus is a common motif in Japanese folklore. Because some octopuses can heal their cut tentacles, samurai may have believed wearing an effigy of one offered additional protection. Conversely, octopuses were a source of fear for Japanese seafarers, so the helmet might also have been designed to intimidate the enemy. What's more, it's made of gold to convey the status of the wearer. The octopus can even be removed for practicality on the battlefield. Okay, mystery solved. However, there is another helmet which remains far more confusing. This supremely odd-looking thing was allegedly given to King Henry VIII by the Holy Roman Emperor Maximilian I. And if you think it's a weird gift, you'd be right. At the time, the horns would have been associated with fools, court jesters, and even cuckoldry, which is where a husband has an adulterous wife. So yeah. It really doesn't seem like the kind of thing you'd give to a powerful king known for offing his wives, does it? Everything from the wrinkles and dripping nose to the ridiculous glasses. It all seems designed to shame the wearer. Yet Maximilian I was allies with Henry VIII. Could it have just been a joke? It seems unlikely. I'm stumped on this one. If you have any ideas, let me know in the comments down below. A Viking's venture. When you think Vikings, you probably think big, bearded, strong men. You might also think of the sea or the awesome gods of Norse mythology. I mean, the Vikings did worship the old Norse gods, right? Well, some mind-blowing finds suggest that some were actually Muslims. Huh? From Viking funeral clothes embroidered with the Islamic god Allah to evidence that Arabic coins were used as currency in Viking Britain, it's becoming clear that there was a complicated Viking-Muslim relationship. One of the most fascinating items was found back in March 2015. This ring was uncovered in the grave of a 9th century Viking woman in Birka, Sweden. It's made from colored glass, a rare and valuable material in Sweden at the time. But that's not what's most interesting about it. Notice the small inscription here? That says "For Allah" in Arabic. And it's in remarkable condition, meaning the woman was probably the only owner. Therefore, Scandinavian Vikings must have had direct contact with Muslims in the Middle East. The ring's owner could have even been one of the very first Northern European converts to Islam. Wow. It just goes to show the Vikings weren't all about drinking mead and pillaging villages. Holy Hole Maker. The Holy Lance. The Lance of Longinus, the Spear of Destiny. Whatever name you know it by, this legendary artifact is most famous for supposedly piercing Jesus Christ in the side after his crucifixion. Oh, and it's also said to grant its bearer the ability to rule the world. Nice. But even if the lance really did exist, there's no way it does now, right? Well, I've got news for you. There are actually four relics that have all been named as parts of the lance. The first is an alleged fragment that rests beneath this statue at St. Peter's Basilica in Vatican City. Though the Catholic Church doesn't formally recognize its authenticity, Pope Benedict XIV claimed to have seen a drawing of the original lance's tip in the mid-18th century, and he said the fragment matched up with it. The second contender lies in the Imperial Treasury in Vienna. This legendary lance is in incredible condition and was once highly revered as the Spear of Destiny itself. But it can be disqualified. Special technology has been used to date it to the 8th century, long after Christ's crucifixion. Then there's a lance head in Vargashapot, Armenia. Said to have been brought there by one of Jesus' disciples, Thaddeus, it now sits in a museum on open display. The earliest evidence we have supporting its claims, though, is from the 12th century, so I'm unconvinced. The last relic is in the ancient Turkish city of Antioch. It's said that in 1098 during the First Crusade, a monk called Peter Bartholomew was visited by St. Andrew in a vision. He revealed to Peter that the lance was buried in the Antioch church, and incredibly, when Peter searched there, he found it and took the lance into battle to secure a Christian victory. How much of this is true, we can't be sure, but it's likely there was a lance of some kind. Unfortunately, though, we have no idea what happened to it. Man, and there I was thinking world domination would finally be within my grasp. Russian Atlantis. No video about weird archaeological finds would be complete without talking about the pristine ancient vases Russian President Vladimir Putin claimed to find in the Russian equivalent of Atlantis. Yeah, you heard that sentence correctly. In 2011, after a series of publicity-centered photo shoots that included the leader horse riding and putting out forest fires in a plane, Vladimir Putin went scuba diving off the Taman Peninsula on the coast of the Black Sea. On this adventure of his, he supposedly discovered two amphorae, a special type of ancient pottery, in the ruins of Phanagoria. Phanagoria is known as Russian Atlantis due to being partly submerged underwater. The problem? While Russian state TV promoted the incredible find, everywhere else was quick to point out that the two jugs looked suspiciously clean with no traces of moss on them, despite supposedly being underwater for centuries. That doesn't make any sense, right? Well, the president's own spokesman, Dmitry Peskov, eventually came out and admitted the whole thing was staged. The pots had been found some weeks earlier, cleaned up, then planted for Putin to pretend to find as part of a propaganda push. Stay classy, Vlad. The Ark of the Covenant. According to the Bible, God gave Moses 10 commandments inscribed upon 2 stone tablets, and to house these tablets a grand chest was made from wood and gold. This chest became known as the Ark of the Covenant, one of the most sacred relics ever. The only thing is, the Ark went missing and nobody knows where it went, if it even existed at all. Unless you believe the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, that is, who say they know precisely where it is. Yep. According to Ethiopian national epic the Kebra Nagast, the Ark was brought to Ethiopia by King Menelik I, son of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. Now it rests in seclusion deep within the chambers of the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion. The only issue is verifying this is nigh on impossible. The Ethiopian Church bans anybody but the assigned guardian of the Ark from seeing it. That said, during World War II, British historian Edward Ullendorf was able to gain access when he entered the church with a band of soldiers. His report is sadly unpromising. Apparently, the church does have a wooden box that looks like the Ark. However, Ullendorf believed it was most likely a medieval creation, similar to Ark replicas in other Ethiopian churches. But what do you guys think? Could Ullendorf have been wrong? Let me know down in the comments. The Nazca Lines. Despite the name, the Nazca Lines have nothing to do with NASCAR racing. They're a collection of strange 2,000-year-old lines carved into the Peruvian landscape near the city of Nazca. Covering a colossal area of 190 square miles, the lines depict huge animals, plants, humanoid creatures, and geometric patterns, and are as mysterious as they are impressive. We know how they were made, by removing about a dozen inches of rusty, oxidized rocks to reveal a brighter sand beneath. But why they exist? We have no idea. Since being spotted by pilots at the start of the 20th century, theories have ranged wildly. Some say they're there for astronomical purposes, but astrophysicists have found no correlation between the markings and celestial bodies. Others have even claimed that they're landing strips for extraterrestrial life forms. Sadly though, even if this is true, it seems no aliens took the bait. Such a dramatic historical event would have had a tremendous impact on the mythology of indigenous Peruvians, which wasn't the case. And would UFOs capable of traveling across space really need a landing strip anyway? Probably not. Instead, experts reckon they were probably made to be seen from the heavens by the gods of the Peruvian people. Equally, they could have played a role in pilgrimages where people followed the lines to reach a sacred place. Because Nazca culture was prehistoric though, we have no written records to give us any clues. Whatever their purpose, they're an unbelievable example of human ingenuity. And you never know. Maybe at some point aliens will show up. Boy, will they be disappointed when they don't get the welcome party they expected at their empty landing strips. Ceramic panic. Back in 1944, a German immigrant called Waldemar Julsrud was out riding in his hometown of Acámbaro, Mexico, when he stumbled across a strange find. A small ceramic figure of a human. Intrigued by the unique appearance of the figurine, Julsrud paid a local farmer to help search the land in case there were more of them. And boy, there were. About 33,000 more. What? The insanely vast collection of figurines was uncovered from an underground pit and included far more than just humanoids. There were also animals, dinosaurs, and even what appeared to be UFOs. So, what gives? Well, Julsrud was convinced the ceramics were ancient and thus prove the coexistence of humans with dinosaurs, and may even prove we've had alien visitors. Young Earth creationists were also excited by the models, using them as evidence that the Earth is only a few thousand years old. If the ceramic figurines really are ancient, they'd blow the lid off history as we know it. The only thing is, they're not. Archaeologists studying the figurines found they displayed no telltale signs of age. There was no dirt in their crevices, and despite some being broken, none of them had any missing pieces. Most damningly of all though, the pit they'd been discovered in was revealed to have been recently dug. And it was suspiciously close to where a family had been selling similar figures for $1 apiece. Right. It's pretty clear to me that Julsrud was just an opportunist looking for a slice of fame. And he got it. If you want to draw your own conclusions though, you can go to Acámbaro today and visit Julsrud's museum, where many of the figurines are still on display. Though don't expect any mind-blowing revelations regarding the age of the Earth. Please. Forbidden Gummy Bear. Oh, I'm a gummy bear. Yes, I'm a gummy bear. I'm a yummy tummy fun. Sorry, I am not a gummy bear. But this thing is, or at least it looks like one. Wait, if that isn't a gummy bear, what the heck is it? That's a question that initially stumped archaeologists when the odd discovery was found in a peat bog near Słupsk, Poland, back in 1887. After some serious studying, it's now thought that the delicious-looking trinket was made over 3,500 years ago. Whoa. Far from being some kind of candy, it's actually an amber amulet that probably once belonged to a bear hunter, hence the shape. Indeed, it's clear that it was carved masterfully. The artist molded the ears, snout, nostrils, and eyes with an uncanny precision peculiar to other finds of the time. Telltale signs of wear around a small bore hole suggest it was attached to a strap and worn like an amulet. Ever since its discovery, the funny little fella has encapsulated the people of Słupsk, who nicknamed it the Amulet of Happiness. More recently, the town decided to honor the bear by annually auctioning off a replica and donating the money raised to charity. Nice. Maybe even best of all though, Twitter user Bossier made silicon 3D models of the amulet, which he created molds from to make actual edible cola-flavored replicas. Ooh boy, okay. Now I'm interested. Just as long as you don't get a gummy replica mixed up with an amber replica. That would be painful. The first computer. Many credit inventor Charles Babbage with creating the first computer in 1871. Simply called the analytical engine, Babbage's device was just powerful enough to perform simple mathematical calculations. But what if I told you that a computer much, much older exists? Okay, that's a recreation if it was in better condition, but this here is the real deal. This strange device dates way back to the 1st century BCE and was pulled from a shipwreck off the Greek coast of Antikythera 20 centuries later. Known as the Antikythera mechanism, its discovery sent the scientific and historical communities into an absolute frenzy. Sure, it's not a MacBook, but it is a highly complex geared mechanism the likes of which wouldn't be seen again until medieval cathedral clocks were built many centuries later. It was most likely used by the ancient Greeks to predict astronomical positions and lunar and solar eclipses decades in advance. Inscriptions on the device reveal the 12 signs of the zodiac as well as the months and days of the ancient Egyptian calendar transcribed in Greek. The front of the device seems to have had a display of the cosmos on it, like this. A hand-powered crank would have turned the gears, spinning the dials. This made it possible to find out the position of the sun and moon on any given day, as well as accurately calculate the dates of eclipses, which is pretty damn wild, especially because no other devices like it have ever been found. All fragments of the Antikythera mechanism are now held at the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, where a reconstruction of what it would have looked like is also displayed. But despite being thoroughly studied, the strange computer still holds many secrets. Who built it? Why are there no others? Could it run Mario Kart? So there you have it. Which of these astonishing finds were you most impressed by? And have I missed any I should cover in a part 2? Let me know down in the comments, and thanks for watching.